Hello everyone, welcome to Tintin's classes. Today's topic is making of the constitution. We all we all know that we were under the British rule. The British came to India in 1600 as a traders in the form of East India Company. In 1765, the company, which was purely working as a traders, now got the Diwani for Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Then they started ruling India. But after the Sipai Mutiny, the British government realized that East India Company is not capable of ruling India. So they took the administration from them and they started ruling India. This continues till the independence on August 15, 1947. When India was about to get the independence, there was a need for a constitution prepared by its own citizen. Hence, a constituent assembly was formed in 1946, which ultimately prepared the constitution, and it was came into being on 26th of January 1950. Now the question is, when Indians started demanding for a constituent assembly? Well, it's in 1934 when the idea of a constituent assembly was first proposed by Manobendranath Roy, a pioneer for Communist Party of India. Also, Indian National Congress officially demanded a constituent assembly in 1935 for making a constitution for their independence. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru, on behalf of Indian National Congress, demanded that the Constituent Assembly should be prepared by the people of India on the basis of adult franchises. Now, the British government was also under the pressure because the World War II was going on, and Germany was getting better position with respect to Britain, and also there was a chance uh, of India getting attacked by Japan. So British government, they played a game here. They offered Indians that we will give you a constituent assembly, but after the World War II. But Indians were not ready to accept those verbal offers. So British government sent Stafford Cripps with the Cripps mission in 1942. But both Indian National Congress and Muslim League rejected the Cripps proposal. Then in 1946, Cabinet Mission came to India, which rejected the claim for a separate constituent assembly by the Muslim and a separate state for the Muslim, but the scheme which they recommended involved a virtual acceptance of the principle underlying the Muslim League. So Muslim League was initially interested in it. Now we will discuss about composition of the Constituent Assembly. In November 1946, the Constituent Assembly was formed under the scheme formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan, which came to India in 1946. The main features of the scheme were the total strength were 389, out of which 296 seats were to be allotted to British India, that is the area which is directly under the rule of British, and 93 seats to the princely state, that is those states which were ruled by the Maharajas, but British used to collect the revenue taxes only. So out of these 296 seats allotted to the British India, 292 seats members were to be drawn from the 11 governor province, that is Madras, Bombay, UP, Bihar, Central Provinces, Odisha, Punjab, Northwest Frontier, Sindh, Bengal and Assam, that is those times assemblies, and 4 from the 4 chief commissioners provinces, that is Delhi, Ajmer, Merwara, Kurg and Balochistan. Now, how the seat distribution was. Each provinces and princely state were to be allotted seats in proportion to the respective population, roughly 1 seat for every million population. Now, there was a communal distribution which I mentioned earlier. There was a representation from Muslim, Sikhs and general. All general are the all except Muslim and Sikhs. The representatives of each community were to be elected by members of the community in the provincial legislative assembly, and voting was to be done by method of proportion representation by means of single transparent vote. So this single transferable vote is the key point here. So nowadays we can see this single transferable vote as with the proportional representation we can see in the presidential election. Now the there was elected members as well as nominated members also. The representation of the princely state were to be nominated by the heads of the princely states. That is, that 93 seats which were allotted to princely states, those will be of nomination in nature. Now, what was the composition of the Constituent Assembly? The election to the Constituent Assembly for 296 British India seats were held in July-August 1946. As expected, the Indian National Congress owned 208 seats and Muslim League owned 73 seats only. And the small groups got 15 remaining seats. I have given a list of the seats that got by those parties or that of that time. You can check there. And the Constituent Assembly was not directly elected by the people on the basis of adult franchises, which I already mentioned, that it was proportional representation from the Constituent Assembly of their respective states. But there was a representative of all sections of Indian society, like Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs, Parsi, Anglo-Indian, SC, ST, women's, all representation were presented at that Constituent Assembly. The one important information here is the Constituent Assembly had every important member of that time excluded Mahatma Gandhi, because Mahatma Gandhi was not a part of that Constituent Assembly. So this might be a question. Now, working of the Constituent Assembly. The first meeting of the Constituent Assembly had took place on December 9, 1946. Dr. Sachidananda Sinha was the interim president. Actually, he was the oldest member of that Constituent Assembly. So as a French rule, he was selected as interim president. So we can mark as first president as Sachidananda Sinha. Then later, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president on 11th of December 1946. The Muslim League boycotted this meeting because they were strict on the demand of Pakistan and separate Constituent Assembly. The meeting was as a result, the meeting was attended by only 211 members, that is the rest of the members. Both H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari were elected as the Vice President of the Assembly. So there were two Vice Presidents of the Constituent Assembly. Now we will discuss a very important topic, that is objective resolution. On December 13, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru moved the historic objective resolution in Assembly. It was the resolution that defined the aim of the Assembly. The resolution was anonymously adopted by the Assembly on January 22, 1947. The main points of objective resolutions were: India is an independent, sovereign and republic. India shall be a union of British India territories of that time, Indian states and other parts outside British India, and Indian states as are willing to be a part of Indian territories forming the union. So it opens the scope of getting others territories also which are not a part of that in British India. So it expressed that way. All powers and authority of sovereign and independent India and its constitution shall flow from the people. So that is, all the power will be with the people of India. All people of India shall be guaranteed and secured social, economic and political justice, equality of status and opportunities, and equality before law, and fundamental freedoms of speech and expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, association and action subject to law and public morality. That is, we can see the similarities with preambles and the basic structure of our constitution. The minorities and backward and tribal areas and other backward classes will be provided sufficient safeguard, and their interest will be kept and taken care. The territorial integrity of the Republic and its sovereign right on land, sea and air shall be maintained according to justice and law of civilized nations. The land would make full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and welfare of mankind. So those were the important explanation of objective resolution. The representatives of princely states started joining the Constituent Assembly. On 28th April 1947, 6 states representatives, Baroda, Bikaner, Jaipur, Patiala, Rewa and Udaipur, joined the Indian Constituent Assembly. After the acceptance of Mountbatten Plan on June 3, 1947, the representatives of most of the other princely states and also some states from the area distributed to Muslim leagues, they also started joining Indian Constituent Assembly. The Indian Independence Act of 1947 made the following 3 changes in the position of the Constituent Assembly. First one is, the Assembly was made a fully sovereign body which could change any law made by British Parliament in relation to India. The Assembly also became a legislative body, that is, it has 2 functions: making of constitution for free India and also enacting of ordinary laws for the country. So these 2 tasks were performed on separate days. Thus the Assembly became the Dominion legislature, that is the first legislature of India. Whenever the Assembly met as the constituent body, it was chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and when it met as the legislative body, it was chaired by G.V. Mavlankar. These two functions continued till November 26, 1949, when the constitution uh, were accepted. The Muslim League members from the areas included in the Pakistan withdrew from the Constituent Assembly from India. As a result, the total strength was now decreased to 299, which was originally 389 under the cabinet mission. Consequently, the strength of the Indian provinces was reduced to 229 from 296, and princely states reduced to 70 from 93. There are some other functions also performed by the Constituent Assembly. Those are: ratified the Indians' membership of the Commonwealth in May 1949, adoption of the Indian national flag on July 22nd, 1947, adoption of the Indian national anthem on 24th of January 1950, adoption of the Indian national song on January 24th, 1950. It, it also elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first president of India on January 24th, 1950. The Constituent Assembly had total of 11 sessions over the 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. The constitution makers had gone through the constitution of all over the world, about 60 countries, and the draft constitution was considered for 114 days. That is, only 114 days they sit together and prepare this constitution, draft of this constitution. The Constituent Assembly held its final session on January 24, 1950, though it did not end and continued till the first election held in 1951-52. Now we will take a look at the committees of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly appointed a member of committees to deal with different tasks. There are some major committees chaired by some important persons, like Union Power Committee chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru, Union Constitution Committee chaired by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Provisional Constitution Committee Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Drafting Committee, this is the most important one, by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and few others also. Now we will take a look at the Drafting Committee. The most important committee, as I said, was Drafting Committee, and Dr. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar was the chairman of that Drafting Committee. It was set up on August 29th, 1947. The main task of this Drafting Committee was to prepare a draft of the new constitution for Free India. There are a total of 7 members in the Drafting Committee. They are Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Chairman, N. Gopalasamy Iyengar, Alladi Krishna Swamy Iyer, Dr. K. M. Munshi, Syed Muhammad Sadullah, N. Nadhava Rao, T. T. Krishnamachari. After taking into consideration of the proposal of the various committees, the Drafting Committee prepared the first draft version of the Constitution of India and published it in February 1948. Then it was kept in front of the people of India for their suggestion and proposal, and the people of India took 8 months to discuss the draft and propose amendments. In the light of the public comments, criticism and suggestion, the Drafting Committee prepared a second draft, which was published in October 1948. The drafting committee sat only for 141 days and took less than 6 months to prepare the draft. Dr. Ambedkar introduced this draft version uh, in the Constituent Assembly on 4th of November 1948 for the first reading. The Assembly had gone through that draft version for 5 days till November 9, 1948, and then it started the second reading session, which was started on November 15, 1948, and ended on October 17, 1949. That is, almost it took 1 year to discuss all those clause and amendments and proposals. So during this stage, 7,653 amendments were proposed and 2,473 were discussed in the assembly. That was a huge number in that short period. In the third reading of the draft version of that constitution started on November 14, 1949. Dr. V. R. Ambedkar moved the draft constitution and declared as passed on November 26, 1949, and received the signature of the members and the president. Out of a total of 299 members of the assembly, 284 were present on that particular day and signed the constitution. This is also the date mentioned in the preamble. We can see the preamble date is 26th of November 1949, and later on the constitution adopted on 26th of January 1950. The constitution as adopted on November 26, 1949 contained a preamble, articles of total 395, 8 schedule, and the preamble was enacted only after the entire constitution was enacted. Some provision of the constitution related to citizen elections, provisional parliament, temporary and transitional provisions, those were implemented on 26th of November 1949. Those are Article 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 324, etc. Rest came into force on 26th of January 1950, because that day we first celebrated Purna Swaraj in Lahore after the Lahore Congress in 1930. So to celebrate that day, the constitution was enacted on 26th of January 1950. Now, with this commencement of the constitution, the earlier two acts, which were Indian Independence Act of 1947 and the Government of India Act of 1935, were repealed. Now, one more interesting topic we will discuss here, that is the Hindi text of the constitution. Now, the constitution was written and adopted in English, but a Hindi version was also published in 1950 under the authority of the President of the Constituent Assembly. So there has been a general demand for the publication of authoritative text of the Constitution in Hindi, incorporating all the subsequent amendments, because those amendments were later on not implemented properly in the Hindi version. So in the 58th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1987, they inserted a new article 394A. This article contains the provision that the translation of the constitution in Hindi language should be done as per the language, style and terminology adopted in the main constitution written in Hindi. The translation in Hindi of every amendment of the constitution made in English, and the translation of the constitution and its every amendment published shall be construed to have the same meaning as the original text in English. That is, there should not be any differentiation in the meaning and the rule. So if any difficulties arises in the matter, the president shall cause the Hindi text to be revised suitably. Now there are few criticisms for on this Constituent Assembly and the Constitution of India. The main criticisms were not a representative body. That is, the Constitution, we are saying in the preamble that that we the people of India are adopting this constitution, but it is not selecting the member of the Constituent Assembly on the basis of the voting of adult franchises, not a sovereign body. That is, the critics said that the Constituent Assembly was not a sovereign body, it was created by the proposals of British government. That is, the cabinet mission was the source for this Constituent Assembly. Time consuming, that is, it took a long time as per them, the critics. They told that American Constitution was prepared in only 4 months. But the point here is American Constitution is very short compared to Indian Constitution. Borrowed Constitution, that Indian Constitution borrowed many provisions from various existing constitutions. Thus, critics remarked it as borrowed constitution. Dominated by Congress, as most of the members of that Constituent Assembly were from Indian National Congress, so they criticized it as dominated body of Congress. Lower political domination. So most of the members of that Constituent Assembly were lawyer or politician. So as per them, the critics, the constitution is bulky and the contains complicated language, not easily understandable by the common people. Dominated by Hindus, most of the members were from Hindu communities, so the critic criticize it, saying that it is dominated by Hindus. Now we will discuss about some important facts of this constitution. Prem Bihari Narayan Raijada was the calligrapher of the Indian constitution. The original constitution was handwritten. This is very important point, handwritten, and it was written by Prem Bihari Narayan Raijada, following in a flowing italic style. The original version was beautified and decorated by the artists from Santiniketan, West Bengal, including Nandalal Bose and Beuhar Ramanohar Sinha. The calligraphy of the Hindi version of the original constitution was done by Vasant Krishan Vaidya and elegantly decorated and illuminated by Nandalal Bose. Elephant was adopted as the symbol of the Constituent Assembly. Sir B.N. Rao was appointed as the constitutional advisor of that Constitution Assembly. S.N. Mukherjee was the chief draftman of the Constitution in the Constituent Assembly, and our Constitution is the longest constitution in the world. Preamble 22 parts with 448 articles, 12 schedules, 5 appendices, and 115 amendments. So this is the largest constitution in the world. The original copies of the Indian Constitution, written in Hindi and English, are kept in special helium-filled cases in the Library of the Parliament of India. Thank you.